This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Koenig, and I just wanted to thank you for attending our presentation on RiteTrack software. And so what we're going to go over today is the different RiteTrack modules. We have a probation module and a facility module, and just talk to you a little bit about how RiteTrack really fits into all of those juvenile justice components that we all might be interested in. So we're going to go ahead and get started. It looks like we have a fair number of people that are in attendance today. So just want to, again, thank you for participating with us today. So just want to talk to you a little bit about what we are providing here with RiteTrack. We are a juvenile facility and juvenile case probation case management system. So we are the only systems that we're aware of that are specifically designed for juvenile justice. We're not a court system, but RiteTrack is designed to integrate with the court system. And so the idea behind that is we believe that court systems, and there's many out there, work very well at managing the court, but they tend to come up a little short in dealing with probation or facilities. And so RiteTrack is there to kind of fill that gap and give you really an outstanding court solution, but also an outstanding facility and probation system as well. So there are two distinct modules. There's the juvenile probation and the juvenile facility. If you are a community that has both probation and facilities under your jurisdiction, you can use one RiteTrack system to provide both of those services for probations and facilities. However, we also have a lot of modules or a lot of customers that are just using the module separately. So just probation or just facilities as well. And so in our presentation today, we're going to kind of break that up into first talking about facilities and then next about probation. The idea behind this is that we want to provide individually or as a whole a really from first point of contact all the way to release and then maybe back to probation in the community, one system that's all encompassing, that's all inclusive, that's able to meet all of those different probation needs and facility needs as well. So RiteTrack is designed to really meet, the standard probation day-to-day operations, but it's also designed to meet kind of those outliers in probation or in detention as well. And I think that one of the things that you'll see as we go through is that RiteTrack really focuses not only on those really important things in facilities like incident reports or probation, like home visits or face-to-face contacts, those, really important things, but also kind of the outliers. So if you have a specialized court docket, such as a drug treatment court or even a family mental health court, if you're really looking to expand your diversion and keeping track of some of your diversion requirements and even flexibility within your probation department as well. And so I know from experience, a lot of probation departments are kind of maybe get a specific grant to do a specific CBT model of treatment. And so they have to prove that they're utilizing this certain requirements in the grant, that they're meeting specific face-to-face to deal with social skills or criminal thinking errors and those types of things. And so RiteTrack really provides the flexibility that those specialized components or requirements can be fit into the system and are flexible within the system as well. And so you don't have to make adjustments just to um, make a specific customization for RiteTrack just to meet certain requirements. The system provides flexibility that those requirements can be done within the standard platform of the system. And really, we're focusing on, as I had mentioned before, first point of contact. So from those first risk assessments to probation intake interviews, those types of things, all the way into commitment to a facility, and then also in release for follow-up care. And so really following that continuancy care model. You'll notice there in that diagram, we're talking about completing assessments, and RiteTrack allows for assessments to be stored within RiteTrack, so you can do an assessment outside of RiteTrack, such as the OES here in Ohio. And so a number of communities are doing that OES online and electronically. So you can store a copy of that electronic assessment within RiteTrack. We even have some customers that are embedding assessments within RiteTrack, and so the MACI and those types of things can be done within RiteTrack. The benefit of that is that also allows you to do data collection on specific questionnaires within those assessments as well. And so continuing the assessments model, being able to complete intakes. So if you're doing intake assessments in probation, or even if you're a JDAI community and doing assessments to determine whether the kid's appropriate for commitment or release, those can be done and stored within RiteTrack. Tracking the treatment modality, so able to do groups and case notes, and really those most important day-to-day operations. So things like home visits for probation, incident reports for facilities, and then keeping track of outcomes. So how are we doing? One of the things that I know a lot of communities struggle with is that they're implementing specific standards or guidelines, but they really struggle with how effective are we doing in these types of things. And so RiteTrack reporting really allows you to see not only what you're doing, but also to determine from a data analysis statistically how effective is the groups that we're doing within our organizations as well. So one of the really unique features of RiteTrack is that it's a web-based system. And so as long as you have access to the internet, you have access to RiteTrack. It's built on a platform that allows it to be accessed through a desktop, a tablet, or even able to be used on your phone as well. There is also security capabilities within the system as well. And so if you are doing groups, or if you do have a mental health therapist in your organization, they are able to enter information into RiteTrack, but it's also hidden from other people being able to view it. And so we're keeping confidential information confidential. RiteTrack is built off of a Microsoft SQL Server platform, which is very common used in government entities. And really the mindset is that we want to produce data. So we want to take your day-to-day operations and give you data from what's going on from the everyday operations in your facility. So you can look at it in a day-to-day format or in a global format, seeing throughout the months, throughout the years, however it may be, to determine how successful and productive we are. RiteTrack is also designed to meet a lot of evidence-based standards and audit requirements. So we have disproportionate minority contact reporting availability. If you're doing PREA with the Prison Rape Elimination Act, there's many standards of that are incorporated into RiteTrack, including the JDAI. So really capturing specific JDAI data and making that as a reporting feature as well. Many ACA for facilities, state and audit, DYS requirements. RiteTrack also has a very unique relationship with PBS. If you're familiar with PBS, performance-based solutions, they do twice a year, they do data collection and then do analysis and quality improvement based off of that data collection. The relationship between RiteTrack and PBS allows for that PBS data to be entered into RiteTrack and then shared with PBS in real-time data integration. So really simplifying the process for those who are PBS and RiteTrack customers as well. And then, as we had talked about, just collecting data for general outcome measurements and making sure that we're in compliance with state standards. So what RiteTrack is really trying to eliminate is what we call siloed data collection. So you may be a facility using your own case management system or a paper-based system. You may be a probation department, even a diversion or drug court, even an aftercare, and really everybody's collecting data within their own kind of framework of their own department, and then having that information shared becomes very difficult and complex. And so what we try to do within RiteTrack is take all of those different silos and allow you to collect all that information into one specific system, therefore simplifying the data collection process and really streamlining how we're analyzing and collecting the data from all these different departments as well. So I'm going to focus first off on the facilities, and then we'll move on to probation. One of our customers here in Ohio is the Multi-County Juvenile Detention Center here in Lancaster. And they are actually one of our oldest customers here in Ohio. And they are, as I had mentioned earlier, one of the customers that has the Macy as part of their RiteTrack system. And so they're doing their Macy screening within RiteTrack itself. We've also set up notifications. And forgive me, I can't remember what specific questions, but a good example would be if within the Macy, there's specific questions dealing with mental health or suicidal ideation. If those are identified as being high risk, we can send an alert to the administrator and to the mental health worker saying that, hey, this Macy has been completed. This youth was identified as being of risk. This gives them a process to set up watch, but also starts tracking not only the risk scores, but also the follow-up that's required for that as well. RiteTrack is a unique system that we are designed based off of the person. So everything in RiteTrack is entered onto the person. And so we have the first screen that you, when you log into RiteTrack, is the person screen. So this is capturing things like demographic information, things like addresses, phone numbers. There's a Documents tab on many of the modules within RiteTrack. The Documents tab allows you to take information outside of RiteTrack and store it into RiteTrack itself. So if you have certain things like maybe an IEP or a predisposition investigation, you know, kind of those paper documents that are being generated outside of your organization, but also are important as part of the use records, you can store that information within RiteTrack itself. Also provides for case notes, keeping track of history of previous admissions, background information, keeping track for facilities, personal property, education. So what high school are they going to? What grade are they in? What's their status? Are they online? Are they in person? And keeping a history of criminal charges as well. This is the face sheet that I had mentioned from that previous screen. So there's always a picture that's incorporated as part of the face sheet. We weren't able to capture it on this slide, but there's also an alert function. And so just gives a notification of important information on this youth. For example, if they have a history of suicidal ideation, if there's any gang affiliation, things like a no contact order, or even important information such as allergies. They're allergic to bees, those types of things. That information becomes part of their record as well. A lot of the information, or pretty much all the information that's entered into RiteTrack, is done on a drop-down option. And so a good example would be here, if you look in the middle under demographics of sexual orientation, according to the PREA standards, they recently added questioning a couple years ago. And so you can go in as an administrator and include that as part of your drop-down menu options. That's a standard feature that's available on all services. And now we can make sure that we have accurate, up-to-date options as part of our drop-down menus. and we can also make changes to those as well. Drop-down menus assure the ease of the users entering the information, and it also ensures data integrity. And so we know that, for example, for race, where all of the options are going to be Caucasian, we're not having some staff put in white. We're having everybody choose a consistent data entry point. Also, because of the person menu, this allows for information just to be stored in the system, but also just to be updated. So you don't have to enter that information over and over again. And so if Joe West is part of our facility and he has his first admission and he comes in 7 months later, all we have to do maybe is update the height and weight and the hair color and those types of things, but the same information is still part of the system. So we're really trying our best to eliminate that duplicate data entry that a lot of places struggle with. Dealing with the admission management. So the most important thing for our facility is the incident reports. And I'll talk a little bit more about incident reports in the next screen. But within the admission management, we're dealing with case notes. Again, another documents tab. Also, staff that's on site, approved for phone calls, approved for visitation, treatment plans, case notes, those types of things are all part of the admission management. As I had mentioned, one of the most important things about a facility is dealing with the incident reports. Within RiteTrack, we create what we call universal group or universal incident reports. And where this becomes important, and a good example of this is with two youth that are in a fight. And so for this example, we have Joe West and Bob Smith. They got into a fight, and we had a number of staff who had to respond to that. In RiteTrack, we create the universal incident report, and so we're only creating one incident report for Joe West and Bob Smith. And the thinking behind this is we all can agree that, most likely, that this fight occurred in the gym on this specific date around this specific time. And so there's no need to create a specific incident report for Joe and one for Bob. And then if we had 3 staff members responding, they're all putting in their specific incident reports. And so if you follow that math, you could be doing a number of incident reports, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 or 6 incident reports just based off of the same incident. And so the universal incident report allows that one incident report to be created, and then the staff can go in and fill out their own specific narratives. And so if we had 3 staff members responding, they could put their 3 narratives as part of that incident report. This really streamlines the process. Within those incident reports itself, we also do restraint documentation and room confinement. So if they're following the example of a fight, if those 2 youth had to be restrained, you could do specific restraint documentation for Joe and for Bob. And if they were both placed in room confinement, in checking that and starting that room confinement documentation also starts the room confinement clock. And so now we can keep track of how long a youth has actually been in room confinement. Going back to some of our compliance issues, this can show that after whatever your standards are, 30 minutes, an hour, that reassessment can be done for the room confinement and the determination can be made whether they need to continue or they can be released. Also within the incident report, we allow for documentation to be included as well. So things like picture documentation, even video documentation. So if the 2 youth got into a fight, one kid got a black eye, you can take a picture of that. That can be part of the incident report. Or if you're able to capture that fight on your security cameras, those security camera videos can be included as part of the incident report as well. And also within the incident reports, we have a review. This goes back to some of our security, so maybe if an administrator or a supervisor is required to review and show that there was supervisory review of this incident report, they can put their documentation and outcome and status, and that can be hidden from the line staff, but maybe is accessible just to the supervisor or the administrator as well. Also within our incident report documentation, we're classifying the incidents. And so they're the type of incidents. So, for example, fight with peers, rule violations, threat to self. And so when we get into our data collection, we can really determine how many types of incident reports are we having? How many fights do we actually have in the facility? How many were incident reports involve suicidal ideation, breaking of rules, those types of things as well. So this goes back to what we had talked about. How successful are we at how successful are we in completing the changes within our facility that we want to make? If we're doing an anger management, are we seeing a reduction in incident reports? Those types of things as well. If we're doing something like a yoga group, has that demonstrated that kids are more relaxed and engaged with their thought processes? Have we seen a number of incident reports decrease? And in addition to that, is there trends? Do we have a lot of fights in the gym? Do we need to increase staffing? Do we need to do something different by what we're doing because the data has identified those specific needs? Now, I want to shift a little bit of gears and talk about probation as well. And so in the probation, and again, this goes back to we're entering this information based off of the youth. And so there might be kids in our, if we're doing both probation and facility modules, there might just be kids on probation. There might just be kids in the facility that go back to probation. And since that information is already entered, such as their name, age, date of birth, we're just identifying where that kid is located. In addition, if they come back in to the facility or come back onto probation, we have a historical record of our previous contacts and previous history with that youth as well. In the probation case, we're keeping track of charges and arrest, case activity that includes fines, fees, and restitution. And some courts are doing fines and fees themselves through the clerks, and the probation is just doing restitution, but we've included all of those because it follows the same logic. Also keeping track of community service hours, how many community service hours have been completed, and also where they're being completed. And so if you have a relationship with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or the Salvation Army, or even a church or something in the community, we can start keeping track of how many community service hours are actually being completed at those specific locations. Also identifying probation violations. And for some customers, that we even have that track tied into the incentives as well. And so we can really show that, are we having a graduated response in our probation violations and our consequences? Are we balancing consequences and incentives closely? Are we way off? And those types of things as well. Keeping track of court hearings, drug tests. And so within RiteTrack, you can embed your drug test. And so if you're doing an 8-panel drug screen, it gives you a list of all the drugs that are captured in that 8-panel screen. It gives you the option of defaulting to positive or to negative, and then the user goes in and identifies the areas that need to be changed. You can also, as part of the standard platform, keep track of the tests that were sent to a lab and what the lab results were, and a documents tab. And so if you need to take an actual picture of that drug screen, that can be part of the drug test itself. And then again, going back to the data analysis, we can start determining how many of our kids on probation are actually using what substances, and do we need to make treatment modality changes based off of that as well. Risk assessments are also part of the RiteTrack system, and so you can embed a risk assessment within RiteTrack or scanning and storing a copy of that. We also have a risk assessment module, which allows you to keep track of the scores, and so identifying high-risk kids, low-risk, moderate-risk kids, and then taking that information and then correlating it to services provided. So we don't want to overserve kids that are identified as low risk, and we don't want to underserve kids. And how do we know that we're doing that if we don't have the data that supports that? I had mentioned incentives, and so these can be just incentives such as, I call them attaboys or girls. Positive reinforcement, things like gift cards, reduction in probation standards, such as extended curfews because they got good grades last quarter or whatever the case may be, and then also incorporating case plans and really identifying what are those specific needs, what are the areas of risk that we've identified in the risk assessments, and correlating that we're meeting those areas of needs within our case plans itself. And for some customers, we're even correlating those case plans into group notes as well. So if we have a kid that's identified as high risk because of negative supports, we can identify in the case plans that we need to address that through positive supports. And we can even, if we're having a positive social skills group, really combining all those areas of risk, but also the areas of response as well, including notes. So if we're doing face-to-face visits, and we can also do time for face-to-face visits. Again, going back to, I had mentioned before, if you're doing a specific treatment group or a specific treatment modality in your probation department, you could say, all right, we had an hour face visit, we did 15 minutes of just history, and then we did 20 minutes of our social skills, positive social skills, and positive interactions. And so keeping track of how much are we really identifying meeting those treatment goals, and then a status history as well. One of the really unique things about RiteTrack is that we provide what we call a case summary. The case summary takes all of these different modules, fines, fees, restitutions, hearing, drug tests, so forth and so on, and puts it into one single document. This document really gives a complete summary of everything that's going on with the case. This allows maybe the judge prior to a court hearing to see a complete summary. It can be used for supervision if you're reviewing cases with your supervisor. And there's also a recommendation part. So if you want to share that with the family as well, you can provide that case summary as well. So really taking all that information that's involved with the youth and putting it into a single document. Finally, one of the unique features about the probation is that we're entering this information, can be for one case or it could be for multiple cases. So a drug test, for example, let's say the kid has 3 different drug charges, but we're just completing one drug test. You can attach that drug test to the different charges or the different cases associated with that youth. And so it goes back to kind of what we were talking about with the incident reports, that we're creating one drug test and we're tying it into either one case or multiple cases. So we have a record of that drug test for those specific cases that it might be required for as well. RiteTrack also provides kind of a what we call staff management, but it serves as kind of a personnel file. And so as staff are required to complete certain certifications such as CPR training, crisis response, de-escalation techniques, whatever the requirements for your organization are, that can be, those certifications can be stored within RiteTrack, also set up reminders for when they expire, when they need to be recertified, keeping track of staff phone numbers, caseload and case history, so who's responsible for what kids, and also the notes. This would be another example of security. So this would only be accessible to an administrator. It's not something that would be shared with other staff as well. RiteTrack also provides, going back to our treatment philosophy of that we're really trying to provide treatment modules within RiteTrack, we provide a group management module. This allows you to track all the different types of groups that you're doing in your facility or in your probation department. It allows you to track who are the youth that are required, required to attend, who are the youth that actually attended the session, and also it creates a universal group note. And so for all the attendees, the moderator or the facilitator can create one universal group note, and that becomes part of each attendee's record. We also allow for modifications to that group note. And so if you're doing an anger management group and you want to do that group note but have a specific modification for an attendee, and you can put a specific addendum for that individual person within that group note that is just part of that use record. This also allows you to keep track of not only how many groups are being done, but how many dosage hours are being completed. So going back to if you're doing specific grant treatment, you can keep track and start having RiteTrack track how many actual dosage hours. So that can become part of your data presentation for your funding as well. And then lastly, we had talked about the reporting features of RiteTrack. RiteTrack provides over 50 standard reports, some specifically for probation, some specifically for facilities, but all as part of the standard platform as well. And any report can be run within RiteTrack, but it can also be transferred to an Excel document, a Word document, or a PDF. And so a good example would be like that case summary. That report is run in RiteTrack for probation, but you can make it a PDF and email it to your judge prior to the court hearing, or the judge can run the report themselves. We also give customized features within the report, so you can customize your tables and say, we don't want to see all of these tables, we just want to see specific tables, and those are specific to a user, and they're also available within the dashboard as well. So each unique user within RiteTrack has the capability to formulate their own dashboards. So as an administrator, you might want to see things in a global standpoint, but as a probation officer, you just want to see things that are going on with your kids. So those are customizable features within your individual dashboard. And assuring that by putting the information into RiteTrack, we're assuring that all information is valid and reliable, and that any information that's entered in RiteTrack is reportable. And so if there are specific customizable reports, those can be created to meet specific needs. And then we've also provided a new feature that allows for the administrator to customize their own forms as well. So really streamlining the data entry process for users. So just to kind of summarize and wrap things up, so RiteTrack has implemented our RiteTrack system in numerous detention facilities and probation departments all throughout the country. We've been doing this for over 25 years. And we believe whether in a detention facility or in a probation and diversion program, RiteTrack provides not only those day-to-day operations that are important for each organization, but also really focuses on treatment and rehabilitation as well. And this allows for specific client collection data and also an administrator to inform decision-making and in reviewing the day-to-day operations. So you get a day-to-day perspective and a global perspective of what's going on within your organizations, and really taking that data collection and allowing you to make data-driven decisions of either changes or successes or areas of needs within your organization as well. So I hope you were able to get a brief snapshot of what we are providing with RiteTrack. I'd be more than happy to give you a personal demonstration. Sometimes it's a little hard to visualize things that we're talking about unless you're able to see them, and more than happy to set up a personal demonstration. This is my contact information. Feel free to give me a call or send me an email. If you notice at the bottom, I've also included a copy of the company webpage that gives a description, and there's some short videos that gives a presentation of both the probation module and the facility module as well. So I just want to thank you and thank everyone for attending and having some interest in what we're providing with RiteTrack. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference and the rest of your day, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any specific questions or if you're interested in a demonstration. Thanks so much for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.